Amen. Good morning. Dustin's right. I am nervous. I can talk your leg off outside of here, but something about being up here and doing it's a little bit different. First off, we are going to make some seniors in our youth group nervous too. So would Morgan and Rosetta, Shane and Tyler come on up front? Where do you go? Hey, I need a mic. I need a mic. There we go. We got two. Here we come. They're being shy and going all the way around. All right, so these are our youth group seniors. I'm going to let them introduce themselves. They're going to tell you their name and what their plans are after school.
Hi, I'm Morgan Owens, and I'm planning on going to Texas County Technical College for nursing.
I'm Rosetta Barlett, and I plan on going to college to be a surgical tech.
I'm Tyler Pinson. I plan on going to welding school in Nevada, Missouri.
I'm Shane Dobson. I plan on being trained and being a diesel mechanic.
Nice. These guys have been around in the youth group for a while. I've had it for 2 years now, but I've been helping for a few more than that, and I'm proud of them. Each and every one of them, they're all going to go off and do different things, and we got a little gift for you. They got to get up and do this second service too, so the second part of the gift is second service. I can't give it all to you now or you won't show back up, so it's probably my favorite part of the gift, so these guys are going to get you something here. Can I get you guys come right over here, scatter out a little bit, get some social distancing going on here. So I think it's pretty important that we invest in our graduates. I think it's important that we make sure they know the way. We've been teaching them now, but I think we need to give them a proper send-off. So I'm going to ask family and close friends, come on down. I've got their permission already. We're going to pray with these guys. And anybody else that wants to come down and pray after that, come on down. If you guys will set those down, have a seat in front of you, we're going to have the church come pray with you. And then I'll close up. God, thank you for these graduates. Thank you for the lives they've already impacted, God. We pray that you just lay a hand on them as they go out into the world and to make their place in this world, that they would just remember to keep you first, God. I pray that you'll comfort them and to show them the path that you would have them travel, God. And no matter what life brings them, God, that you would just show them what your will is, God. I pray that you'll be with their parents, God. Be with all the ones that's impacted their life, God. Help them to stay in prayer for them and to lift them up and to encourage them. God, again, I thank you for the day. I thank you for the students. I thank you for your love and for this church and their support. Just watch over us, God. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. Graduates, you can get your stuff and sit down now. I know it's tough coming up here, being in front of people. Speaking of being uncomfortable, I had to do a bio for the church website here recently and realized I've been coming to church here for about a little over 23 years. And for about 21 of those, I was real comfortable. Had a nice little spot right up there in the balcony. You balcony peeps? Yep. We can let our kids run around up there. Nobody bothers us up there, right? Then this wee little man, yay high, come along by the name of Jay Scribner. Jay, I hope you're watching, buddy. Love you. Every Sunday morning, he had something to say about me sitting up there in that balcony. I was too far from the pulpit, sleeping in the balcony. Every morning, he had something to say about it, every Sunday morning. Finally, if you know Jay, you know he just got this way about him. He gets his way one way or another. Love the man. Love him. But then he got me right up here. Front row. That first Sunday was very uncomfortable. Way out of my comfort zone. My family's too. And so the second Sunday, my mom and Gary joined me down here. And somehow to see how uncomfortable they were made me more comfortable. But then another new guy showed up. He's kind of pretty, good hair, not much bigger than Jay. But he gets me off the front row, and now I'm here in front of you. So seniors, I'm uncomfortable this morning too, but with God, we're going to get through this. This morning, I'm going to be doing a lot of reading. So bear with me on that. We're going to be in Genesis 37 to start with. We're going to be discussing the life of Joseph. And this is going to be kind of geared towards you graduates, but I think we can all relate to something in this. We'll try to break it down a little as we go. We're going to start in 37, verse 2. These are the generations of Jacob. Joseph, being 17 years old, was pasturing the flock with his brothers. He was a boy with the sons of Bilhah and Zilpah, his father's wives. And Joseph brought a bad report to their father. And now Israel loved Joseph more than any of his sons, because he was the son of his old age, and made him a robe of many colors. Let's stop right there for just a second. How many younger siblings we got in here? Yeah. Was you the favorite? Yes. Starting to make sense a little bit, seeing some of the hands that went up. So just make note right there that Joseph's 17 here when the Bible starts mentioning him. Let's go to verse 4. When his brothers saw their father loved him more than all his brothers, they hated him and could not speak peacefully to him. Now Joseph had a dream, and when he told it to his brothers, they hated him even more. He said to them, "Hear this dream that I have dreamed. Behold, we were binding sheaves in the field, and behold, my sheaf arose and stood upright. And behold, your sheaves gathered around it and bowed down to my sheaf." His brothers said to him, "Are you indeed to reign over us? Are you indeed to rule over us?" So they hated him even more for his dreams and for his words. Then he dreamed another dream and told it to his brothers and said, "Behold, I have dreamed another dream. Behold, the sun, the moon, and 11 stars were bowing down to me." And when he told it to his father and his brothers, his father rebuked him and said to him, "What is this dream you have dreamed? Shall I, your mother, and your brothers indeed come to bow ourselves to the ground before you?" And his brothers were jealous of him, but his father kept saying in mind. So I'm an older sibling. I'm an older brother. We got older brothers in here, older siblings in here? Yeah. How dare he say that, right? As older sibling, no. We established the pecking order. He done ran his mouth. We're not going there. No. So they're probably going to do something about this now, right? And don't let me get this wrong. My brothers can probably all take me now, but I used to set the pecking order. Let's continue on, and verse 12. Now his brothers went to pasture in their father's flock near Shechem. Israel said to Joseph, "Are not your brothers pasturing the flock in Shechem? Come, and I will send you to them." Skip down to verse 23. So when Joseph came to his brothers, they stripped him of his robe, the robe of many colors that he wore, and they took him and threw him into a pit. The pit was empty, and there was no water in it. Then they sat down to eat, and looking up, they saw a caravan of Ishmaelites coming from Gilead, with their camels bearing gum, balm, and myrrh, on their way to carry it down to Egypt. Then Judah said to his brothers, "What a profit it is if we kill our brother and conceal his blood. Come, let us sell him to the Ishmaelites, and let our hand not be upon him, for he is our brother and our own flesh." And his brothers listened to him. Then Midianite traders passed by, and then they drew Joseph up, lifted him out of the pit, and sold him to the Ishmaelites for 20 shekels of silver. They took Joseph. So they took Joseph. I did a little reading that the average cost of a slave was 15 to 30 shekels. So he was right in the middle there is what they got sold for. When Reuben returned to the pit and saw that Joseph was not in the pit, he tore his clothes and returned to his brothers and said, "The boy is gone, and where shall I go?" Then they took Joseph's robe and slaughtered a goat, dipped it in the robe in blood, and they sent the robe of many colors and brought it to their father and said, This we have found. Please identify whether it is your son's robe or not." And he identified it and said, "This is my son's robe. A fierce animal has devoured him. Joseph is without doubt torn to pieces. Then Jacob tore his garments and put sackcloth on his loins and mourned for his son many days. All of his sons and daughters rose up to comfort him, but he refused to be comforted and said, "No, I shall go on to Sheol and to my son mourning." Thus the father wept for him. Meanwhile, the Midianites had sold him into Egypt to Potiphar, an officer of Pharaoh, the captain of the guard. So his brothers probably took it a step too far, right? They were tired of little bro getting special treatment. And then to them, he was running his mouth about it. He was telling them about these crazy dreams, right? So they sold him into slavery. And the Midianites turned around and sold him to Potiphar. And he was kind of high up with Pharaoh, and he was the captain of the Pharaoh's guard. So, graduates, can you imagine this? 17 years old, sold into slavery, separated from everything you've ever known, from everyone you've ever known, shipped off to a new place, and nobody's coming to look for you because his brothers just told father that you were dead. So everybody thinks you're dead. Nobody's coming to look for you. You're in a low spot right now. That'd be a tough spot. Let's move on to chapter 39, verse starting in 1. So now Joseph had been brought down to Egypt, and Potiphar, an officer of the Pharaoh, the captain of the guard, an Egyptian, had bought him from the Ishmaelites who had brought him down there. The Lord was with Joseph, and he had become a successful man. He was in the house of an Egyptian master. His master saw that the Lord was with him, and now the Lord caused all that he did to succeed in his hands. So Joseph found favor in his sight and attended him. And he made him overseer of his house and put him in charge of all that he had. From the time that he made him overseer in his house and over all that he had, the Lord blessed the Egyptian's house for Joseph's sake. The blessing of the Lord was all that he had in the house and in the field. So he left all that he had in Joseph's charge, and because of him, he had no concern about anything except for the food that he ate. So we went from one extreme to another now. He's all alone. He's sold into slavery. He's lowest of lows. Doesn't know anybody. Doesn't know what's happening. But yet, through all that already, he's stayed faithful. He's kept the course. And now he's been put in charge. So even though he's still a slave, he's in charge of Potiphar's everything. All he had to worry about was the food that he was eating. He could have, he could have threw in the towel. He could have gave up whenever he was at a low right there, right? But he didn't. He stayed faithful, and now he's in charge of stuff. Let's keep reading. Verse 7. Now Joseph was handsome in form and appearance, and after a time his master's wife cast her eyes on Joseph and said, "Lie with me." But he refused, and said to his master's wife, "Behold, because of me, my master has no concern about anything in the house, and he has put everything that he has in my charge. But he is not greater in this house than I am. For has he kept back anything from me except you? Because you are his wife, how then can I do this great wickedness and sin against God?" And as she spoke to Joseph day after day, he would not listen to her, to lie beside her or to be with her. But one day when he went into the house to do his work, none of the men in the house was there in the house. She caught him by his garment, saying, "Lie with me." But he left his garment in her hand and fled and got out of the house. Graduates, you're fixing to see temptation in a new light. So up until now, you've had mom or dad or guardian, you've had teachers, you've had people watching out for you. Probably a lot more than you even realize. Probably a lot of times you had the way paid for you before you didn't even know it. Moms, dads, you know what I'm talking about. So now you're moving on. It's going to be up to you. Nobody's going to be standing over you, telling you what to do. You got to take what you've learned and stay the course. God tells us in Matthew 6, again in Luke 22, and again in Matthew 26, watch and pray so that you will not fall into temptation. I'm going to say that one more time. Watch and pray so you will not fall into temptation. When Joseph was faced with this temptation, he fled. He got the heck out of Dodge. Certain situations you're going to be put in, that's not a bad idea. Sometimes we need to stand up and face them, but in this situation, this scenario, definitely a good thing just to get out of there. Let's pick up in verse 13. And as soon as she saw that he had left his garment in her hand and had fled out of the house, she called to the men of her household and said to them, "See, he has brought among us a Hebrew to laugh at us. He came in to me to lie with me, and I cried out with a loud voice. And as soon as he had heard, I lifted up my voice and cried out. He left his garment beside me and fled and got out of the house. Then she laid up his garment by her until his master came home. And she told him the same story, saying, The Hebrew servant whom you have brought among us came in to me to laugh at me. But as soon as I lifted up my voice and cried, he left his garment beside me and fled out of the house. As soon as his master heard the words that his wife spoke to him, This is the way your servant treated me. His anger was kindled. And Joseph's master took him and put him into prison, the place where the king's prisoners were confined, and he was there in prison. So now he's back to a low, right? He's in a prison. And not only a prison, he's in the king's prison. He's in the dungeon. He's confined again. So even though he fled from temptation, he's still being punished, right? Graduates, just because you do the right things, just because you do everything, to a T, you follow the rules. Sometimes life isn't fair. And it especially isn't fair if you're in the wrong spot at the wrong time. You could be totally innocent. Maybe you decide to go to that party. You're not doing anything wrong, but you're there. Maybe you decide to go hang out with the wrong crowd. Maybe you just make one bad decision. It was only one. It doesn't matter. You can be associated with that. You can have that put on you and still be in trouble for it. I tell this to the sports teams I coach all the time. Sometimes we can't control the act or wrongdoing against us, but we can control what we do in response to it. So 21, but the Lord was with Joseph and showed him steadfast love and gave him favor in the sight of the keeper of the prison. And the keeper of the prison put Joseph in charge of all the prisoners who were in the prison. Whatever was done there, he was the one who did it. The keeper of the prison paid no attention to anything that was in Joseph's charge because the Lord was with him. And whatever he did, the Lord made it succeed. So again, Joseph was faithful, even in his low in prison, and God protected him. Let's continue in 40, verse 1. Sometime after this, the cupbearer of the king of Egypt and his baker committed an offense against their lord, the king of Egypt, and Pharaoh was angry with his two officers, the chief cupbearer and the chief baker, and he put them in the custody of the house of the captain of the guard and the prison where Joseph was confined. The captain of the guard appointed Joseph to be with them, and he attended them. They continued for some time in custody, and one night they both dreamed, the cupbearer and the baker of the king of Egypt, who were confined in the prison, each his own dream, each dream with its own interpretation. When Joseph came to them in the morning, he saw that they were troubled. So he asked Pharaoh's officers who were with him in custody in his master's house, "Why are your faces downcast today?" They said to him, "We have had dreams, and there is no one to interpret them." And Joseph said to them, "Do not interpretations belong to God? Please tell them to me." Skip down to 14. Only remember me. So Joseph, let's back up for a second. Joseph deciphers their dream and is telling them, he tells the first one, he's fixing to tell the second one, but he's telling him right here, hey, remember me. Only remember me when it is well with you. And please do me the kindness to mention me to Pharaoh and get me out of this house. For I was indeed stolen out of the land of Hebrews, and here also I have done nothing that they should put me in the pit. Y'all ever had that friend, graduates, you ever had that buddy that's like, hey man, help me out with this. Just this one time. Help me out. I'll do this for you if you'll do this for me. And then you do that for them, and no, they didn't do it for you, right? They skipped out. They got the heck out of Dodge. And then let's skip over to 22. As Joseph had interpreted them, yet the chief cupbearer did not remember Joseph and forgot him. So Joseph's in prison. He's like, hey bro, I'll help you out. You help me out. We can do this together. Let's get out of here. But then he was forgotten, right? So Joseph was in prison 2 more years after that. Exodus 14:14 tells us that the Lord will fight for you. You only need to be still. So sometimes God's timing isn't our timing. And for me, that's most of the time. I'm going to bet Joseph didn't have prison in mind. He didn't have any of this life in mind when he was 17, right? He had no idea none of this was going to happen. But even though this was happening, he still stayed faithful. He still kept the course. We may not like or understand the situation we're in, but all we have to do is know that God's got our back. I told you there'd be a lot of reading. Let's go to 41, verse 9. Then the chief cupbearer said to Pharaoh, I remember my offenses today, when Pharaoh was angry with his servants and put me and the chief baker in custody in the house of the captain of the guard. We dreamed on the same night, he and I, each having a dream with its own interpretation. A young Hebrew was there with us, a servant of the captain of the guard. When we told him, he interpreted our dreams to us, giving us an interpretation to each man according to his dream. And as he interpreted to us, it came about. I was restored to my office, and the baker was hanged. Then Pharaoh sent and called Joseph, and they quickly brought him out of the pit. And when he had shaved himself and changed his clothes, he came in before Pharaoh. And Pharaoh said to Joseph, I've had a dream, and there is no one who can interpret it. I have heard it said of you that when you hear a dream, you can interpret it. Joseph answered Pharaoh, It is not me. God will give Pharaoh a favorable answer. Skip over to 28. So Pharaoh tells him his dream, and then Joseph picks up 28. It is as I told Pharaoh. God has shown the Pharaoh what he is about to do. There will come 7 years of great plenty throughout the land of Egypt, but after them there will arise 7 years of famine, and all the plenty will be forgotten in the land of Egypt. The famine will consume the land, and the plenty will be unknown in the land by reason of the famine that will follow, for it will be very severe. And the doubling of Pharaoh's dream means that this thing is fixed by God, and God will shortly bring it about. Now therefore let Pharaoh select a discerning wise man and let him set him over the land of Egypt. Let Pharaoh proceed to appoint overseers over the land and take 1/5 of the produce of the land in Egypt during the plentiful years. And let them gather all the food for the good years that are coming and store up the grain under the authority of Pharaoh. For food in the cities, let them keep it. That food shall be reserved for the land against the 7 years of famine that are to occur in the land of Egypt, so that the land may not perish through the famine. This proposal pleased Pharaoh and all his servants, and Pharaoh said to his servants, "Can we find a man like this, in whom is the Spirit of God?" Then Pharaoh said to Joseph, "Since God has shown you all this, there is none so discerning and wise as you are. You shall be over my house, and all my people shall order themselves as you command. Only as regards to the throne, I will be greater than you." And Pharaoh said to Joseph, "See, I have set over you all the land of Egypt." Let's read verse 46 too. Joseph was 30 years old when this happened, when he entered the service king of Egypt. So this is quite a life so far, right? Let's lay this out here. So first, Joseph starts out as a favorite son. Then he has these crazy dreams, right? And tells his brothers about them. And that didn't fare too well. At age 17, he gets sold into slavery by his brothers. Shortly after, he finds favor with Potiphar, gets put in charge. Then he gets falsely accused by Potiphar's wife, thrown into prison for 2 years, 2+ years. And now, at age 30, he is second in command. Only Pharaoh is above him. And through all of this, despite the ups and downs, he still stayed faithful. He never questioned God's plan. Could you imagine going through these things without God on your side? I'm not sure I could make it through these things without God on my side. Let's skip over and read James 1:12. Blessed is the man who remains steadfast under trial. For when he has stood the test, he will receive the crown of life, which God has promised to those who love him. Guys, God's going to close doors. It's going to happen, I promise you. And most of the time, it's not going to be fun. You're not going to like it. You're not going to understand it. Just trust him. There's a few of you that's known, you adults, a few of you that's known what you're going to do your whole life, right? Stayed the course. My wife's known she wanted to be in the medical field since she was this big. But I guarantee you, every person in this room has had ups and downs, even if you didn't know what you was going to do. Just know that God sees the big picture. If he closes the door, there's a reason he's closing that door. He's got something else for you. So back to Joseph. He gathered grain for 7 years, and just as he predicted, the famine took over the land. Pick up in verse 56. So when the famine had spread all over the land, Joseph opened all the storehouses and sold to the Egyptians, for the famine was severe in the land of Egypt. Moreover, all the earth came to Egypt to Joseph to buy grain, because the famine was severe over all the earth. So up until this point, he's had no contact with his family. Doesn't know what's going on there. They've had no contact with him, hasn't seen his dad. 42:1. When Jacob learned that there was grain for sale in Egypt, he said to his sons, Why do you look at one another? And he said, Behold, I have heard that there is grain for sale in Egypt. Go down and buy grain for us. That way we may live and not die. So 10 of Joseph's brothers went down to buy grain in Egypt. So they're going down there. They don't know their brother's the big man in charge now. Can you imagine the satisfaction on little bro's face when your brothers come marching in to beg after they sold you into slavery, told you that you wasn't going to amount to anything? So, Christmas, 8 years ago, we was hosting it at our house. It's with my dad and all my brothers. And one of my little brothers kept pestering me. He came and sat down next to me. Just wouldn't leave me alone. And being an older brother, he deserved a backhand and be put in his place, right? Or so I thought. So I did so, and it about that quick, little brother had older brother down. And you can imagine the rest of my little brothers enjoyed every second of it. Everybody stopped what they were doing. And just the tide turned, right? Little brother, yeah, he enjoyed that very much. And I think Joseph's enjoying that in this situation too. He toys with his brothers for a while. Just so you know, my little brother ended up going 30-1 at a Class 5 school wrestling, so it's not like I got whooped by a weenie. So back to Joseph. Man, he had every right to do whatever he wanted to his brothers, right? He could have put them to death if he wanted to. He could have treated them the way he was treated. He could have locked them up. But he didn't. He just toys with them right now. Let's skip over to 45. Pick up in verse 1. Then Joseph could not control himself before all those who stood by him. He cried, "Make everyone go out from me." So no one stayed with him. Then Joseph made himself known to his brothers. And he wept aloud, so the Egyptians heard it. And the household of Pharaoh heard it. And Joseph said to his brothers, "I am Joseph. Is my father still alive?" But his brothers could not answer him, for they were dismayed in his presence. So Joseph said to his brothers, "Come near to me, please." And they came near, and he said, "I am your brother Joseph, whom you've sold into Egypt. And now do not be distressed or angry with yourselves because you sold me here. For God sent me before you to preserve your life. For the famine has been in the land these 2 years, and there are yet 5 years in which there will be neither plowing nor harvest. And God sent me before you to preserve for you a remnant on earth, and to keep alive for you many survivors. So it was not you who sent me, but God. He has made me a father to Pharaoh, and lord to all of his house, and ruler of all of the land of Egypt." So again, through all he had been through, Joseph still stayed faithful. He had grown wise through all the situations he's been through. And he does what many of us can't do. He saw the bigger picture. He showed compassion for his brothers. He gave forgiveness. You're going to have people wrong you, graduates. A lot of people. We're human. Don't put your faith in people. They'll let you down every time. Put your faith in God. So through Joseph's whole journey, he could have stayed angry, resentful, feeling sorry for himself. Could have pouted. Any pouters in here? My daughter raised her hand. He could have said, "Poor, pitiful me," every time something went wrong. Because let's face it, it wasn't just a slap on the wrist for Joseph. I mean, he was in prison. He sold into slavery. I mean, it was pretty bad. In the end, he could have held a grudge. He could have thrown in the towel, said, I don't want nothing to do with you, but he didn't. He forgave them. And he realized that he was never alone. God was with him the whole way. And he used people that Joseph didn't expect along his journey. Joseph was never alone. He had God with him. He used Potiphar, his slave master. He used the prison keeper. And then he ultimately used the Pharaoh. If we walk in obedience, God will make a way, I promise you. Again, our timing isn't always God's timing. He'll open the doors that need to be open. He'll close the ones that need to be closed. And we don't have to understand it. We just got to trust him. We're going to have an invitation here in a minute. And where are you at today? Are you in a good spot? Are you in a low spot? Whichever spot are you in, are you trusting God with it? Or are you trying to handle it on your own? Guys, we can build up our own kingdom. We can do everything. But I promise you it will crumble without God as a foundation. We're going to pray in a minute. If you don't have God as your foundation, don't put it off. Come down here and get on your face before God. I'll be down here. Pastor Dustin will be down here. And guys, keep these graduates in your prayers. They're fixing to embark on a journey. We need to keep praying for them. Let's pray.